This is part of the inspiration for the story. Now, this is about Aubrey Beardsley, who was an artist during the Art Deco period and the Art Nouveau period, and this is representative of a sculpture that he created at the time, which you can find on the internet. And it's got the love heart. The peacocks are forming a little love heart, and you can see the tails of the peacocks just down here, and it's done in filigree and succulents, which is rather a lovely combination. It's one of his cleaner sculptures, and he was part of the circle that came to Bournemouth. He wrote some books. You can pick up his books on the internet, which shows you lots of his designs for the art that he created at that particular time. We'll look at the next bit, shall we? Sorry, I'm very soft-spoken, Steve. Having a look at the lighter side of the garden, you have fairies that are created in white willow, and a frothy display of flowers, which is taken from Falero's fairy painting that is housed in the Russell Coates Museum. The cosmos and some of the lighter flowers are actually taken from that particular picture. The sculptures are created by a man called Stephen Jennings, who is an absolute expert with willow weaving. He weaved a cathedral which is housed near Winchester, completely made of willow, so natural substances. And that's the lighter side of the Victorian era, the respectability and the face of general public faith.
Next bit.
Yeah. You're right.
I'm just tired. I'll wake up.
Okay, we're going to go down to the other end of the garden, which has been taken from inspiration from St Peter's Church in Bournemouth, which is the church where the Shelley family, the Trelawneys, the Russell Coates, and all the artists and poets that became part of the circle in Bournemouth would worship. When you walk into St Peter's Church, one of the first things that you see, particularly when it's hit by sunlight, is the church window, the stained glass church window, which is in beautiful shades of blue and sort of raspberry colours. And this particular part of the garden represents that window. The Shelley family worshipped there, and it was such a place of memory for Mary Shelley that when she died she was buried there along with Shelley's heart, and her parents were brought from London and interred with her, so the whole family is there. If you go and see, you can see the tomb and you can see the commemorative plaque that's placed there. As we move round, we're looking you can see the dark willow statues here, and they're representative of the dark side and the demons from Robert Louis Stevenson's story, Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde is a story about a doctor, a physician, who experimented with drugs, and they changed his personality, so he would change from a very ordinary man, and after taking this particular potion he would turn into a monster. And that's representative of the monster that he became. You probably know it today as the Incredible Hulk. That's a representation of that story. Now, they had a competition while they were on holiday in Amalfi. They used to go abroad for inspiration for their writing, their poetry and their art. And they were collectively holidaying in Amalfi in Italy. And during that time they got bored and decided to have a competition. So there was a competition between the writers, in particular Mary Shelley and Robert Louis Stevenson. Jekyll and Hyde was the story that came out of it from Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote the story on his return to England, showed it to his wife, who absolutely hated it and made him burn the whole story. And he rewrote the story in less than a space of a week, and during that time recreated the story from memory, and the story became the story as we know it today, which is Jekyll and Hyde, very famous story. So that represents the burning book. And as we move round, still keeping the demons. This particular section of the garden with its colours is representative of the funeral pyre that burned Shelley on the shore in Amalfi. Now, during their holiday, Shelley decided to go out on a boat trip, and it got stormy, and unfortunately he was lost overboard at sea. His body wasn't found immediately, but it washed up about a week later. So the men in the party, with Trelawney, Robert Louis Stevenson, one or two others, decided to have a funeral for him on the beach, and they created a funeral pyre to burn his body. Mary Shelley was not there. Women weren't allowed to funerals at that particular time. And it's said that the heart was snatched from the flames by Trelawney, who later gave it to Mary. And Mary kept the heart close to her for the rest of her life. And latterly, when she died, it was her wish that the heart would be buried with her, which is entombed at St. Peter's Church. So there you have that particular part of the story. When we were at Hampton Court, there was a statue in the middle, a sculpture made by Avonbourne School, which was taken from the Frankenstein's monster theme, and it represents Prometheus Unbound, which was one of Shelley's poems. When we go and look at it at some point, you'll see that it's a dove chained up and suspended by another bird, and that represents Frankenstein's monster and his hopes of being accepted in society. Nice truck. Nice one, boys. So the dove represents Frankenstein's monster's hope of being accepted into society, and the chains represent the confines that society put on him. He was never accepted, which was quite a blow to him. Now, Mary Shelley was so fond of Bournemouth and had such fond memories of Bournemouth that eventually she was to come here to live with her one and only son. She lost a lot of children, and the last one was the one that survived, and he built a manor in Bournemouth, which became the Shelley family home. She never actually lived there, but a lot of her possessions were brought there after her death, along with her body, to be buried in Bournemouth. But the family created a stage. There's a stage there, and they would have plays and collect again the writers' circle and the circle of artists from Bournemouth together. Bournemouth, in its wisdom, decided they were going to pull it down, but there was a big battle, and people like Kenneth Branagh and Harry Landis and Equity and local council